Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the beginning of the last days. I hope everyone can hear us. Give a thumbs up, and we can hear you if you can. So I'm doing another interview. I'm going to blast out something that I did when I was recently in southern Manitoba in the Portage-Lisgar riding, and I was able to meet with a couple of mothers. And I tell you, as my good friend Dominique says, the mothers are coming. And they discovered that there were books in the libraries that are in the children's section that are the most vile and disgusting books you could ever see. So before we get to that, I opened my dad's Bible that I love to read from every single day because he loved the word. And guess what? So Matthew 18, verse 6. Here it is underlined in Old King James Version. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones, which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Do you hear what God's saying? God is literally saying, it's better if you commit suicide right now than that you hurt kids or offend the children, because they are his. And so that's the reality of what we're finding out. So we're going to get to this incredible interview of some amazing moms who are standing against this. So Maxime Bernier is campaigning now in Portage-Lisgar, and he had a CBC reporter come up to him and ask him about banning books. Oh, we can't ban books, And this CBC reporter, so we're going to go to the clip, right? You got that clip ready? So that's good. The CBC reporter wanted, the whole angle of mainstream media, you bunch of crazy people, seriously, is about banning books. Do you think all books should be okay? Do you think that you should be able to show any amount of filth to children? How crazy is this world that they have to ask such stupid questions? Check out this clip.
You believe in personal responsibility, personal freedom. What do you make about some characters in Manitoba, some people wanting to ban books?
That depends which one. So, every book?
No, they want ban every book that deal with gender identity. They want them out of schools, or out of libraries, pardon me. What does that fall in line with the freedom ideology?
I believe that they have a point over there. These sexual books to children, because it is. And I saw one of these books actually yesterday, and I had the privilege to have a meeting with parents that were very not happy with that. And I believe that we must fight that. Yes, you are free, but children cannot. Why pushing the sexualization of our children in our society? We don't need that. They're doing that at school, and they're saying to a little boy that is playing with a truck, maybe you're a boy, and maybe they're giving, let's talk about it. What do you think about?
You have a copy on hand.
Absolutely. We are showing that to children. Children at school, that's not the place of a book like that. I can have a lot of examples. So it's a sexualization of our children. All that must stop. And actually, can you believe that? Here is province. Look at it. That's what you're showing kids. You must be ashamed of that. And that's why I'm doing that fight against that, for the common sense.
Let me tell you that the pictures that the mothers, Christine, Ronceray, and Jennifer, showed me were so disturbing that I never want to see them again. And once was enough. Thank you very much. And I honestly believe that anybody that is seeing these pictures and not acting quickly for the protection of children, something's wrong. So I have Maxime Bernier's Twitter feed here, JT, and I will show you a couple of other things that are happening. He's getting some good promotion. We're not afraid, is what he said. He's going to be bringing up in the Winnipeg Sun. They've covered it. He's going to be bringing up a lot of issues. He's going to be talking about what is going on. One of the things Maxime Bernier said, the mother said her child had been influenced by propaganda in school, a fad, and brainwashing by the media. Before it at school, she never questioned her identity. A Canadian mother is blocking trans teens surgery, fuels age debate. And so this is a big deal. This is what's happening. And I appreciate that Maxime Bernier is willing to speak. This is awesome. He was just on with our favorite, Viva Frey. And we love you, David Frey. And he's got some stuff up regarding Josh Alexander and young men that are standing up for the protection of women's private spaces. Josh Alexander and Nathaniel have been arrested. They've been told that they are going to, going to be in trouble if they keep speaking out against young boys going into girls' bathrooms and such, and also the drag queen story hour. So that is sort of a separate agenda and issue from what the moms are now willing to fight for, so that their children are protected from having to see certain things that are in the libraries. So just before we get to that, I want to point out that Bill C-4 is the bill that banned conversion therapy. Now, conversion therapy, that is a terrible word, but what it means is, as a parent, you may face up to 5 years imprisonment if you try to talk your child who is confused about their identity out of transitioning. Pierre Poilievre and all of the CPC voted this in. This bill will mean that anybody who dares to try to set a young person straight on their problems and, issues of confusion, a young boy wants to be a girl, if a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a social worker, or parents decide that they would like to tell this child that their identity is how God created them and that they shouldn't transition, if they do that, they face fines, they face potentially losing their jobs, and parents can even face jail time. That's the reality. And you know who celebrated that? Pierre Poilievre and all of the CPC. Not one dissenter. Some MPs were not there that day, but everyone celebrated this. So who's standing for the kids? Well, I'll tell you who's standing. And that is the incredible people of Portage-Lisgar and the incredible mothers who are standing in for their kids. I believe also that Maxime Bernier will be showing up at a school board meeting to literally be there to protest what he's seen. Thank God for this man. And thank God for Christine, Ronceray, and Jennifer. Let's take a look at this interview. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Laura-Lynn Live. I am so blessed. I am in southern Manitoba. So I was sitting around. I got a couple of invitations to go visit with some people. And I started talking to a couple of really amazing women. And they began telling me about some of the things that we're hearing that is going on across the United States and other parts of Canada. And that is sort of the awakening that there are books and things that are in our libraries and schools that we as moms and dads would not want necessarily our kids to be seeing. So I was pretty shocked by their story, and I thought, well, listen, let's just set the camera up and we'll talk to a couple of great women. Now, I just want to say something about being in southern Manitoba. It's like so far from Babylon, British Columbia. Like, what happened is, so I'm in the hotel this morning and they're playing the Christian station on the television, and we're watching, eating there. I mean, like, I have never seen that in British Columbia, and so I realized that there's just such a beautiful, very beautiful family, salt of the earth goodness about southern Manitoba. So
That's why we're here.
exactly,
You could.
yeah.
You should come out here.
I know. Well, I've already told a few people I maybe should have raised my kids here, but that makes the information that you have like really all the more shocking. Like, you are beautiful women, beautiful moms, and so I'm here with Christine, and it's Christine Ronceray? Ronceray.
Yeah, Ronceray.
Ronceray.
No worries.
All right, and I'm here with Jen as well. And you have children, and you are active members, and you work, and you've got very busy lives. So I appreciate that you're just taking the time to let me know what you found. So I think it kind of starts with your story, right?
Yeah.
Something happened.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, but you know you're a very important person to this whole thing. So thank you so much for having us. So what actually happened is that I needed to get my kids out of school. There was some stuff that was coming down, and I just didn't think that it was right. So I took my kids out of school, started homeschooling, and we needed a library. We can't obviously access the school library, so we decided to go to the public library. And in our area, that's a public regional library. And so, like most parents, you bring your kids to the library and you let your kids go and explore, because the fun part about being in the library is that some kids like fiction, some kids like nonfiction. The most important part is that your kids go and read, right? We need to get that literacy. They need to go and have an adventure. So as a mom, you're watching your 5 children walking around the library and just going to go and enjoy getting ready for their adventure. My son, at the age of 6, he's now 7, picked a book off the shelf and told me it's not right, that I should just take the book out of his hands, and I gave him a different book.
Just be honest.
Okay, the Holy Spirit. I honestly think it was the Holy Spirit that told me that, but
Right.
yes.
Grab the book out of his hands.
Just grab the book out of
right
his hand.
now.
And for some
Yeah.
reason, and so I flipped through that book, and it was just very gentle, and I gave him a different book, and I started flipping through this book, and I said, oh my goodness, well guys, we're out of here, because what I saw was, in my opinion, pornography, right? But to be certain, I would have to look at the Criminal Code of Canada, because this did not seem right. So I picked my kids up and we left. I came back on another occasion, and I was able to grab 3 books off the shelf of the children's nonfiction, right beside the cute little chairs that are in the library for kids to be sitting at. While everybody's exploring, in the children's section, these books were right there, mid-stack of the children's nonfiction section. Now, it didn't seem right to me, and I thought, man, am I an old prude, or what's happening here? I'm not that young chick anymore who I must be really lost. So I brought that book. It was summer, so that was May of last year, and so we had swimming lessons coming up, and I brought that book to people at the swimming pool. When the kids are in the pool, I showed other adults, and not one adult would say that this was okay. These
Right.
books were...
It's not like it's just you.
No, it wasn't just me. It turned out that I'm not a prude. Who
Right.
was not? Right?
Everybody.
But yeah,
Everybody agreed with what
Yes,
you're saying.
Everybody agreed. And so I was really convicted that this is not right. So of course I brought it to the managers, and we went up the pipe to the director, and then I've met so many wonderful people. God has really blessed me with so many people who have come into my life through this, and with so many skills and so many talents. I didn't really understand the talents that God has given us until you go through something like this. And the prayers, the people who can pray, the guys, we really need prayers, because that is what's moving things in this world. I don't think we had enough God to begin with,
Yes.
because we just let things slide.
Right.
We've got to put God back in and kick that devil out.
Right. I
Because
mean,
this
no
is a
prayers in
spiritual battle.
schools anymore. When my mom grew up, she said that they would actually start with a prayer at her school.
We still
Absolutely.
did in rural Manitoba.
You
for a
did?
while. God Save the Queen, Our Father,
Right.
and a Bible study to start every day.
In a public school.
in Steinbach Regional Secondary
Wow.
School in Manitoba.
And that would have been a
That
grassroots.
is now gone.
That's now gone.
That's now gone.
It has to be requested by parents.
Wow.
70% of the people, I believe, in Manitoba
Have to request it.
request it in order to get it. But yeah, funny rules that have come down that eliminated God. And when you eliminate God and it's an empty vessel, guess who comes in? And that's what we've allowed. And we've got to stop allowing it. We've got to start standing up and saying enough's enough.
Right. This
We've
far and
drawn
no
the line.
farther.
Yeah, we're drawing the line and we cannot have this anymore.
So you grab this book from your son, you see these unbelievable pictures, you show a bunch of people, you start inquiring about
Yeah,
it.
so it was basically, yes, I actually said, why are these books on the shelves? Originally, I wanted a sticker placed on it, right? I knew this was wrong and I didn't know how to act. And I was used to, well, that's okay. I was used to being
like a
being that
Canadian,
person.
we're
okay.
Yeah,
So I asked them to put a sticker on the shelf or on each spine to give the kids a warning, you know, and maybe not a warning, but just these books have this in it. And if you're interested in that, then you can go look at them. And if not, that's, and it was just a little symbol. And I even said, what if it was a rainbow? And I knew it didn't feel right. And when I chatted with a friend, they said, oh, come on, Christine, what are you thinking? They're showing porn to your children and you want them to put a sticker on it. And it hit me like a brick wall that I'm doing this wrong. I'm actually asking them to show porn to my children when I should be standing up and saying enough's enough.
Right. This needs to be gone.
This needs to be gone. So like I say, I had such wonderful people that I've met through this and they've helped me. Yeah, everybody's got a special personality and yeah, that's.
And it's kind of where Jen, and I want to just move the camera over because you guys, you've really tag teamed it, but I'm just going to do this because I somehow cheated myself and I want to make sure we got all of you there. So you ladies actually began collaborating on what you were finding out. And so Jen, how did this issue first sort of come to your eyes?
Well, through Christine, and she's quite persistent, so there's no getting away from her
Personalities.
once you meet her. So, but the perspective I took is you need some sort of legal foundation. This can't be a moral debate. This can't be, you know, our society doesn't accept those conversations anymore. Like you said, we've taken God out of every public institution. I am a public school teacher by trade, so I know how the system works. But if you can find a different way to have this conversation, hi, sweetie. Can you go back downstairs? No? Then you're going to be able to help other people understand why it's a problem. Because if you look around us, everything says it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Your gut says it's not fine, but everyone says it's fine. Every public institution, and I would argue that it's a religion that's indoctrinating our entire society, including our children, schools, libraries, wherever you go, media, obviously. But we have to go back to something that was founded on God's law. And I believe that our criminal code actually was created and written at a time when people in this country would look to biblical guidance to be able to direct the lives of its citizens and to be able to protect them. And so when we used other people's information, we sorted stuff and we came across the criminal code. And it defines what pornography is. So I did phone a police officer and I said, hey, just a question. What is child pornography? It can't possibly just be videos and photos. It's got to be more than that. Can you help me understand? They never got back to me. They didn't have an answer. And I think nobody really knows the answer to that question because we don't really actually follow through with a lot of those charges anymore. Right. So we went and we looked at it ourselves. And so under the Justice Laws website, if you go and look at the actual legal PDF version, which would be French and English, you will find sections 161.1 of the criminal code, and it defines what child pornography is.
163.
Sorry. Yes. Thank you.
Section
163.1 of the criminal code. And so the assumption that a lot of people would make is that pornography would be something like the magazines that people talk about or videos or whatever. But how it defines pornography is actually a photograph or a film or a video or, and here's the piece that we realize, visual representation. So visual representation can be a drawing, a character,
cartoon.
A cartoon. It can be anything that's obviously like very, very attractive to a child. But if it's porn, it's porn. So what is porn then? It is anything that shows a person who is depicted as being under the age of 18, so a minor, and engaged in, oh, did you miss it? Sorry, just a second. Well, it's engaged in sexual activity. any kind as sexual act. So we realized that these books, even though they're made to look innocent and inviting and everyone is smiling, or in fact maybe they don't even have heads, it's just the body parts, that those would be considered child pornography. So then we had something to stand on. And the other piece that we looked at was section 152 of the Criminal Code of Canada. And this is a book that you will not see CBC talk about, and if you do, it'll just be the cover and maybe a very innocent section. But this book, Let's Talk About It, has very graphic step-by-step instructions on how to self-pleasure to achieve climax. And I will just, so you can look at that on your own. It's pretty terrible, but it gives instructions, and I'll just read the verbs: stroke, whack, bending pressure. It's talking to you about. Yeah, anyways, tug, squeeze, and then it also discusses the use of sex toys. So the concerning part about this is it's irrefutable that it is invitation to sexual touching according to the criminal code. So the criminal code words it this way: every person who for a sexual purpose invites, counsels, or incites a person under the age of 16 years to touch directly or indirectly with a part of the body or a part of the or with an object, the body of any person. It's very complicated. The body of the person who so invites, counsels, or incites. So they're basically saying you cannot teach a child to touch themselves in any sexual way. You cannot teach the child to have someone else touch them in a sexual way, and you cannot teach the child to use an object to have any sort of pleasurable experience, because we understand what this does to a child. It opens up the doors for grooming and pedophilia. And so the laws that we have in Canada protect our children from those things.
It's supposed to be protecting our children.
For obvious reasons, right? And so what we're watching in the States actually is they're using the Criminal Code of Canada as a template to be able to protect their children. The ironic thing is, in Canada, we don't see anyone using these criminal codes to protect our children. In fact, if you look at mainstream media, they will work very, very, very hard to censor the criminal code from any kind of news media event at all. And they're doing it for obvious reasons. If it's this obvious, if this is saying it's illegal to teach a child to touch themselves in any sexual way, and you have this book written by comic book artists with a caveat. I have to read this caveat to your people. Where is it? The caveat at the beginning says the authors and publishers expressly disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects that may result from the use or application of the information contained in this book. I mean, mind-blowing, right? Nobody's responsible. So wow. Your librarian who is your counsel, that library responsible? Like, who's responsible for this book if the authors aren't responsible and if the publishers aren't responsible? And they say that because they know. So there's information in this book about how to sext. Where to
look for your own porn and kinks. Yeah. Apparently, that's a cool word. Kinks.
Maybe I am a prude.
I'm a prude too. Then.
Yeah, I'm a prude.
Are you a prude, Jen?
Yeah.
And all your friends probably.
Yes,
you know what?
Actually, so, because I don't even know what this stuff is about. Like, it's.
I used to teach sex education, and it didn't look like this.
Right.
So the question would be, why is this on the shelves? Why in 2015 was there an explosion of information available to children around these ideas that we'd never seen come into published literature before? And why again in 2019, 2020, 2021? And
it's a direct attack on the children.
Now, right. Why was there an explosion of it all? So you're saying 2015 something happened and all of a sudden
we have these books in our libraries.
And
they're being published.
What could it be?
So, interestingly enough, the World Health Organization seems to be advocating for a lot of things in the world, and our countries seem to clamor for the information given by the World Health Organization. And probably a year ago, I would have not thought twice about the World Health Organization being referenced as a reliable source of information for making decisions. I mean, I wouldn't have thought twice. But I think twice now about just about everything. So in 2015, the World Health Organization published a document and they discussed comprehensive sexual education. So I was never educated in that realm, even though I was teaching kids sex ed. That was not language that was used when I was teaching sex ed. So comprehensive sexual education is something very different, and that's the language that's being used in Canada right now. And it's a reference to the World Health Organization's working definition, which states that sexual health is a state of physical, emotional, mental, social well-being in relation to sexuality. And it's not merely an absence of disease, dysfunction, or infirmity. So we have to think about, well, where does sex ed originate? So the argument was, we need to keep our kids safe, right? We always use the issue of safety, right, to implement policy, right? So we said we need to keep our kids safe. If kids are getting pregnant, girls need to know, boys need to know, so that we can reduce, unwanted pregnancies and we can keep our kids safe. That education was biological and physiological education. You would see diagrams. You would have very, very basic information around the actual sex act of sex itself. The idea was that sex results in a child with immense responsibility. So be wise, and also STDs, right? Those were the pivotal pieces of sex education. And it was about safety. But the shift that's happened here in 2015, we're talking about emotional, mental, and social well-being in relation to sexuality. So you've opened the door for the conversation of absolutely everything. And what people don't realize is that the World Health Organization is advocating for you and me, our churches, our synagogues, our public education institutions, our libraries, anything that's publicly funded, because those are the people they have access to. They want them to view a child as a sexual being from birth.
It's here.
So what does that mean? If a child's a sexual being from birth, they're autonomous. They can make decisions about consent.
And it's their right, in a way. They're saying it's their right.
Literally,
Right from birth.
Literally, they're saying it's their right from birth to receive this education. And if a child is a sexual being from birth, and if they have the right to be educated about sexuality, not about sex, sexuality, then this opens the door for all of the education that you're seeing coming down the pipe right now, which involves self-pleasuring. Even though it's against the criminal code, you're seeing educational institutes implement the advice of this organization, CCAN or whatever.
So who's CCAN?
So they're an outside institution that was funded by the Public Agency of Canada. So your federal government funded this document, and it's largely founded on the World Health Organization's recommendations. And again, their foundation is your child's a sexual being. So what happens to the age of consent? There is none. So if you look at what's happening in France, where they're now saying a child can consent for themselves, which means it's not illegal to have sex between an adult, say, and a 1-year-old, as long as the child consents. 1-year-old can consent. And we're going here right now. So today, the Manitoba Libraries Association is hosting a conference. I mean, it's literally happening as we speak
today.
right now. It's
Okay.
online, everything's virtual now.
Yeah.
But they brought in a lawyer, and they are arguing that it is the right of a child, independent of their parents, it is a right of a child to receive sexuality education under our Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Wow.
It's an abuse. It's
Let's
an abuse
call
of the
the
Charter.
Honorable Brian Peckford and ask him if
Oh,
our
That was
Charter
the
of
intent.
Rights and Freedoms, under the sovereignty of God, if that was the intent, that we would one day teach our children very sexualized materials.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the intent is very important, actually.
Yes.
Very important.
And so the thing is, it is about pleasure, which we've never seen before. And the way that they're going through this, because we always have to attack. So in Europe, we're seeing it a little bit differently. It's very overt. It's very like, you should watch porn at this age. We are not going to do that to Canadians because, of course, we're a bit more conservative in Canada than they are in Europe. And they've had a lot more time to push this agenda there than they have here. But, oh shoot. I lost my thought. Sorry, I'll go to the next one. So how does this relate to our provinces? Because this is a federal document. This should not be able to infiltrate our schools unless our schools are lazy. unless our educators aren't doing their jobs or our ministers of education don't want to take the time to consult the parents and the communities about what sexual education should look like in Manitoba, because it is under their jurisdiction. They could say, no, this isn't a document that's right for us. I don't think so. But if we just don't want to do the work, we commission somebody else to do it for us. So Manitoba has actually commissioned a document to be written that comes directly from the same producers of this document funded by the federal government. And
I think that's where you guys have
So-
Soji.
Right.
We don't have Soji here
We
yet.
have Soji in British Columbia.
Yeah.
You don't
because
have
they were
that.
commissioned.
Right. They were commissioned under the ARC
Yeah.
Foundation, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
So if that's under the federal government, is that a jurisdiction of the federal, like a federal MP should be dealing with it then?
they could.
They could.
They could deal with this document, right? It was only paid for, and what they'll say it's only a recommendation, right? But what we've seen in the last several years is that our institutions will accept any kind of top-down push without investing the time and the money. And I believe too, because of the mass exodus of children from the public education system, specifically here in Manitoba, like we're watching different divisions beg for money. They don't have money for bus drivers. They don't have money for crossing guards. Why? People have
Kids are
lost their
bailing.
trust in the public school system. So if you don't have enough funds to invest the time to create or to address the issue of outdated, is what they would call them. We have outdated sex education programs here in Manitoba and across the country. Then you let someone else do the work for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting to figure out what the federal arm is. That's because education is a provincial matter,
100%.
but the federal monies are coming in.
Yeah, and my guess is that there would be grants and stuff associated with that. So when you put when your schools are in a position of a lack of funding, they will always move towards looking for grants. I myself applied for many grants when I was a teacher, right? If you can apply as a division for a grant to institute this program, they always view it as more money is better.
Right.
And as long as we're up to date, and you have organizations lobbying for this information to come into our schools,
Right.
of course.
I'm pretty sure it's actually more intense than that. I actually think that this is so pushed that it's a have to. It's not even based on grant. It would be the Manitoba government has signed a 2030 agenda. We all know that. I do believe that it's being pushed not just federally.
Well, and if they can make the argument, and I believe possibly it will end up in a court at some point, but that it is a basic human right and they say of anyone is of any age to receive this kind of education. Who's going to be able to say no? Our provinces actually won't be able to say no, because all of a sudden our provinces are also under the jurisdiction of these laws that
I think what's happening is this or the information, but the is basically now probably being bombarded by some of these books. And I wanted to take that.
That's for sure. Oh, that's a
What
guarantee.
was the book
an
that you
absolute
took out of
guarantee.
your son's hands?
Okay, so the original book that he had, I took this one out of his hands.
Yeah.
And then right beside it, a book. Now, this one, yeah, everybody, there's a lot of media that says, oh, well, that's teaching about puberty and it's teaching. I'm not going to lie, puberty being taught, right?
In
Yes,
the weirdest
well,
way you
this
ever
will be-
wanted to know
there
about
This will be the
puberty.
transition between the old way of viewing sex ed and the new way, but this is also labeled by its publishers as what?
Sexual education, or instruction, not sexual education. So the difference between that, and luckily I have a teacher who can help me out with that.
So what's the two phrases?
So
Sex.
sex ed,
Ed,
sex education.
Versus sex
Sexual
instruction
instruction.
for children.
instruction. for
So
children.
that's the act. That's the
how-to.
how-to. That's the guidebook, right? You know, if I'm looking at my instruction manual, that's very different than reading a definition or looking at a diagram.
Right.
So that's the difference that you begin to see in a book like this, and then you get to this book, it's just a comic book. And
Right.
it's been created between Google, of all things, and
Comic
to
book artists.
Comic book artists with no qualifications. And so when you have directors of libraries arguing that this book is acclaimed and it's educational and it's won all of these awards,
You might not even look at it as a parent. Like
This-
some parents would just not look and they just trust.
but that's how
That's
our
right.
directors are justifying these books in their libraries. That story is an overt lie.
Absolutely.
And it's a lie to cover their tracks, and it's a lie to convince the public that this is what it's not. Because then all of a sudden people like us seem a little bit crazy, you know, and question in the same way that
There's-
Christine did.
yeah, there's-
Right.
Am I
there's
just
so
out
much.
of date?
Am I just a prude or whatever? So just to be clear, like we won't show you the pictures in the book that your son was going to pick up, but it's appalling. Like I looked once, I don't want to see it again.
Yes.
And
So there's actually, and it's cartoon drawings.
right.
Of
You can
people with
describe it a bit,
intercourse,
so we don't
laying naked in a
hurt
bed,
you.
Actually doing the sex act. There's children with erected penises. There's men, and there's a woman bending over with breasts exposed, looking at her anus and her vagina. There's
There's a man.
in
Is that
this
the one?
in this book, there's a naked. Okay, so in this one, it
So
has
why would you need
male
this?
and,
Think
and
about
female
this
genitalia.
visual.
I need to stop you for a second because I didn't get to read the whole definition of child
Yes.
pornography. I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
so one qualification is it can, so we're looking at visual representation because of course we're not going to use child on child. That's illegal, right? You can't give child porn because guess what? We call that sexual abuse. That is a definition of sexual abuse in Manitoba, and
Manitoba, for
across
sure.
Canada.
It's-
So we
yeah, for
we
sure,
can't
it's
do we
Canadian.
can't do that. So they're trying to sneak in with the visual representation, but it defines it in two different ways. One is that it shows a person who is under the age of 18 and engaged in sexual activity. And number two is that the dominant characteristic, so this is the and or, right? The dominant characteristic is the depiction for a sexual purpose, right? It's instruction, that is a sexual purpose, of a sexual organ and or the anal region of a person under the age of 18 years. So when you show a comic book drawing of a child bending over, like, I mean, it's a replication of The Color Purple if you want to look at literature that is read in high school, where you're looking at yourself with a mirror, but they're showing the anal region, they're showing the vagina, they're showing the hanging breasts, and
Yeah.
the reference there is for a sexual purpose. I mean,
So the media claims that that this is all about puberty. So
The media.
the media. And it's far from, it's in teaching how, it teaches how to have oral sex, it teaches how to have anal sex, it teaches how to, it actually describes that, and according to the criminal code, that is counseling on how to. And so that breaks the criminal code. Read the criminal code, look at the books, and it's very obvious to me, and I hope to your viewers, that all they have to do, if they want to stop this, we need to go to our libraries, go look at the books in front of our kids, read the criminal code, look at the books that you can't unsee, can't unread. But as an adult, that's your job. Your job is to go out there and find out the truth. You'll see that it breaks the criminal code. Then do something. We need to start acting.
Right.
We need to start standing.
so you told a little bit about your story, but I think the next step is to discuss, you know, when you have concerns and you're ignored, because the concerns were definitely ignored at the library level. All of a sudden,
Right.
there
So you
was,
go to the lady behind the counter. Did you
Well,
just start
so
there?
we started there. For sure, used to start
Okay.
there.
By the way, this is disturbing. You know, I
Yeah.
can only imagine. Like you just start somewhere
Yeah.
saying,
And then you would start, then you would go, I mean, you can always make a book complaint, but that only talks about one book. And this is a policy issue. This is allowed in our
so
libraries.
this is
isn't.
important. It's about the policy that is done by the board of the library.
Yeah.
And does every library have a board?
Yeah, it's
Or-
going to be a little different, but yes,
Okay.
every library,
So
every
this is
publicly
important.
funded library should have a board. Now, it might look different in different areas. You can have a municipal board, you can have a regional board, or you can have a city board. It
You have to
depends on where
figure
you
it
are.
out.
Yeah, it's
you have to
not
ask
that
some
hard.
questions, yeah.
It's not that hard.
it's a phone call.
It's a
Okay.
It's really like Googling the name of your library
Yeah.
and then
You'll know.
Who is the board?
Figuring out which
Yeah.
phone number is to
Who
connect
are we
with the
or
director.
whatever, yeah.
It's actually, it will be put into actually the library name. If it's a regional, that means that there's more than one municipality involved.
Okay.
If there's one municipality involved,
Oh, we'll just have a little break right here. We can actually edit it. Yeah, no problem.
But we didn't get anywhere with those people. So then you go to,
well,
Well,
you
sorry.
do have to start there.
Sorry,
you
but
do
the-
have to
the,
start.
the conversation that was had though. So basically someone requested to be a delegation. That's a fancy word for a person who presents in front of a board. And the thing is, your board should want to have conversations with their community, right?
They should. It's a public library.
We are the stakeholders, right? We're the ones who pay the taxes. So therefore, we have a vested interest there. They should have a vested interest in what we have to say. Usually the policies actually reflect that too.
Yeah, but don't be surprised if they ask you to go down the pipe properly. So you're going to start with the manager, ask where it comes from, the branch manager. And they're going to say, oh, wow, okay, well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Go right then to the director. So every board has a board that overlaps. You will have one director hired by a board, and it's either called the director or the supervisor, but there's one person that's directed, and that takes you to the board. Ask to be a delegation in front of the board to ask them to put a policy in place that eliminates,
that aligns with the Criminal Code of Canada. And
to
the two
eliminate
sections.
these books out of your shelves.
Well, you don't say that.
No, but that's your purpose. That is your absolute purpose, is to
It's
make
to
sure that
eliminate
these books
that are
don't-
legal.
Right.
I think we need to remember
Yeah.
that because again, it's not a moral issue. It's not about my opinion. It's not
That's
about
right.
your opinion. If it's illegal, it's illegal. And when it's so incredibly obvious, we just go and say it's got to align with the criminal code because every institution resides under the criminal code. It doesn't
Canada.
matter if it's a publicly funded organization or an individual.
Right.
We all have to obey
Like the
that
criminal
law.
code governs a lot of things, not just this.
Oh,
but
absolutely not.
How your behavior, you're not allowed to murder people because the criminal code says that's illegal.
Yeah.
That's right.
This criminal code in Canada states explicitly what is illegal about what you can have available for children.
Or how you can teach them.
And Laura-Lynn, the Criminal Code of Canada doesn't just adjust to, like you're saying, to you driving on the highway or you murdering people. Absolutely. This applies to everything. So if you're in school and you see that these books, I'm sorry, but it breaks the Criminal Code of Canada. You bring it to the library, it breaks the Criminal Code of Canada. If it's funded by anybody, if it's publicly funded, it should not, by any means, be a violation to the Criminal Code of Canada. Now, if you were to have these books in some guy's dark basement, you might be able to, I mean, it's still illegal to show children, but if that's what they ordered, that's what they ordered. I wouldn't play that fight, but I also wouldn't be bringing my children to a dark basement of some stranger's house.
Right.
This is publicly funded with our tax dollars. So we started going to the library by asking them to put a policy in place that aligns with the Criminal Code of Canada, to not only get rid of the books that have porn, but to not allow pornography to come onto the shelves in front of the children's eyes.
Because we know the onslaught is coming. We know that the funding's in place. We know that equal representation is the idea that's fueling a lot of this material. And so we're just going to see more and more and more. And I believe we're going to see it in more and more graphic ways.
Content.
And it's ironic because even though the Manitoba Libraries Association would say freedom of speech, freedom of thought, we have to represent the entire community, it would also say that they are under the criminal code and therefore they cannot have materials, and I say materials because this stuff's available in there, and I will say paid for, curated online selection. You have to remember that they pay for and they choose those books one by one.
Right.
Okay, that's not just this magical cloud of books. No, they pay for them, they pick them, and the stuff that's on the shelves. So what was my point?
That I don't know.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I get into the details.
No, it's
But-
okay. But they've chosen these books, and so they're purchased by tax dollars, and they have to be accountable.
They're
for
supposed to be
that.
accountable.
Yeah.
I don't know who the library police are, but they're supposed to be accountable to us.
Yes.
Now, with that said,
Sorry,
Did you
I
get
will
it?
finish.
Yeah.
Yes. So the Manitoba Libraries Association would say
Yeah.
that they are under the criminal code and they cannot have books that contain, for example, hate speech. They cannot have books that say contain child pornography. They literally give that example. They also can't have books that would incite someone to terrorist activities. That's their words. And why? All of those things because they're illegal. So in the same way, you can't have a book that's going to teach any individual to, cause harm and create terrorism in their own country or another country. You can't have child pornography on the shelves because of the criminal code. So regardless of what they use in their veiled language, the law is the law. They see that, and that is why our libraries will not discuss this. So since September, no delegation has been allowed to speak. There have been individuals who want to speak just from their heart, their personal experience. I mean, we know what happens when people are traumatized and victims of sexual abuse. That stays with them for life. If they want to speak, they should have the right to speak, but people are being denied. If someone comes and says, look, you've changed your policies twice since September to limit public voice, and this is
Wow.
this is at the South Central Regional Library Board level. We want to talk about that because guess what? In your policies, it says that I should have the right to discuss policy with you, and they're being denied.
Wow.
Literally, nobody has been allowed to speak, and
What happened was there a bit of a, people were going forward about the books?
yeah, so in
Yeah.
September, so after I went to the beach and went to the pool or whatever, we found some people. There was a delegation that was requested to go to the library, and we showed them. It was basically an awareness situation because these poor board members, and I want to say poor because I don't hate them by any means. I don't think that they know what they're doing, right? I don't. I
And they
think we
might
have
not
to
be
compassion.
prepared to deal with this
how would
onslaught.
they know what every book is on the shelf, right?
Right.
We didn't even expect the director of the library to
To know.
necessarily have
No.
read these books, right? Like I was a school teacher and I did not read every book that the students in my classroom read. I trusted that they were safe. Like really.
Yes.
And
sure.
I believe that our directors and our libraries
Any
by and
parent
large
would
be
just
the same.
send
Trust.
off their kids to the library because the library is where you have all this information and you learn and you'll get smart,
Yes.
because
But
I
you would
went to the
think that
library
that's
as a
real
kid. Like that was my parents were proud. She is going to the library.
Yeah.
This is a big moment, Dave,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
mom would say.
Yeah.
And now this is no longer a safe place.
And it's no longer
At
a safe
all.
place. It's funny that you say that because we do have to touch on that safe place. And there was, in this area, we had a wonderful petition that got us to that. So I'm gonna make sure we bring that up.
Okay?
So we went to the library and asked for a policy. We basically were bringing them awareness that they don't even know what's on their shelves, and they didn't, because they were surprised, right? They were surprised just
I
like I
bet.
was when I opened this book, and it was just a shocker.
Right.
And so they opened it, they were surprised, and when we left that meeting, there was 100 people in the room. So of course that would feel, I would assume, I shouldn't tell people how other people feel, but it would be like an
Bit
onslaught, a bit
overwhelming.
overwhelming
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
those were people out of
nonetheless.
the public who went to a public board meeting, which was their right, and they just wanted to listen to a public board meeting. Now you have to remember that these public board meetings are there for a reason. They're a board meeting for the board, but they're also supposed to be for the public. So the boards should be welcoming of the public. But it's so new in our areas because we don't do it. We don't do what our job is.
Right.
Our job as the public is to put them in an accountable position so that they can have these conversations and be accountable to the public. We're not bombarding them with questions and accusatory situations. We're actually just showing them what these books are.
Right.
And that they
And the
can
criminal
choose,
code.
and the criminal code. And so if you put the two together and you can see the violation, they would hopefully put a policy in place to allow that to change. And of course they chose not to. And that's okay. If that's what they chose, I don't think it's okay, but that was their choice. Now, if that's what they've decided, then we said, well, if that's what they decided, then why are we funding it with tax dollars, right? So now we went to the municipality and asked, why are you putting taxpayer dollars to put things that break the criminal code
Into the
in
library.
libraries? And it's pretty obvious. So we made the councils aware, and they too had the choice. Are we going to fund the libraries? And so that puts everybody into a sticky situation because the council does not run the library here because it's a regional library. In Winnipeg, they do. The council runs the library. They help make the policies that run the library. And I would beg to say that's, well, I know in Manitoba that's how it runs. I'm pretty sure that's how it runs in other provinces. So if your communities that you're talking to, the people that you're talking to, if they want to do something, it's a very, very easy way of figuring that out.
Right.
And then, so we went to because we have a regional library, we have 7 councils. And not one council is more important than another council. And they all have one member of their council because they need to represent that money. They have one council member on that library board. And they wear the hat. They're supposed to be wearing the hat of their job as an elected official on council on that board. Now, we can't tell what those council members to say, but as the public, your council is supposed to represent you. So that's why I'm going to ask everybody to start talking to their original board, their library board, and plead with them to direct them, advise them as their stakeholder to put a policy in place.
Create a policy that will
Align with the criminal code.
Aligns with the criminal code for
Right.
the safety of the children. And then the
How
piece
hard is that?
It shouldn't be hard for an elected official who runs under the criminal code, but also under the Municipalities Act in Manitoba. Safety is their jurisdiction.
So that's where
So
we come
it
in
might
safety.
not be the jurisdiction of the library specifically, but it is of our municipality. And so our municipality has a unique opportunity here. Our councillors have the unique opportunity to have conversations about bylaws. Oops.
That's all right. Okay,
So-
she's dealing with
dealing
her
with
child,
children.
whom we love so much, and this is
That's
what it's
why
all
we're here.
about. Yeah, and so we've actually, because we wanted to make sure that there weren't ears that were listening to any of this that weren't that maybe shouldn't be listening. So
Yes, and we do our best as moms, right? We're just
So-
moms who are working on this.
so this,
And dads, actually.
yes,
So this, we took, in order to have a presentation, we just took some pictures from the library, or from the books. And we on one page, we showed the criminal code. On the
Yeah.
next page, we showed the pictures. So that you're not coming in with a big stack of books. And I mean, these aren't the only books, Laura-Lynn. These aren't the only
right.
books.
This
that
is
are in
only
the
what
library.
you've
This
found.
is what I
It's
found.
so
I found
scary.
3 that first day.
3
And-
the first day.
Yeah, and then more people and more people. And they're not just on the children's nonfiction. They're also in the fiction shelves. But they're there, accessible to children. Children of any age. Your readers, your kids don't have to read in order to see these pages that they can't unsee.
Right.
Right?
And another book that we kind of didn't really cover, but
Yeah.
should we show this
We
one?
should definitely
Yeah?
show that
Okay,
one. You know
so
what? Now this one showed up as in our libraries. We can't buy that book.
Be bold
Or we
and
can't
brave
rent that
and
one.
queer.
Yeah.
Basically says on the back, all boys aren't blue. Okay.
So to claim that that's a book of knowledge, it's not. It actually is a memoir manifesto.
So let's remember what a manifesto is for a second.
Yeah.
And let's think about the Communist Manifesto. So this book has a very intentional intention, and it's to convince you of something. It's to convince whoever reads that of something. So it's not, doesn't fall under fiction. Really, it would fall under memoir and essay writing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's okay. I think
That's
it's
okay.
yeah. And so in light of that, when you've gone through this book, I see that there's a whole bunch of, because the content in there is, written content.
Well, the problem here is you have graphic, so like I studied literature in university. That was one of my, what do you call it?
Majors.
One of my majors. Thank you. It's been a while since I talked about it. I read Thompson Highway. So Thompson Highway is a Manitoba native author who's very well read across the entire globe, and his experience, unfortunately, in residential schools was horrific. So gross sexual abuse, right? His book does not come close to the graphic content in this book. Why? Because at the time that he was writing his material, number one, you don't need to give all of the information for someone to understand the horror. Like, I literally could not finish reading his book, not because of the detail, but because of the way he wrote it in a very poetic way. I actually couldn't handle the content. It was far too emotional. But in this book, they will give you all of the details. So it's not just sexual acts, it's child-on-child sexual abuse, and I would call it rape, because he says no, and it still happens. But instead of focusing, because remember, this is your essay, this is your manifesto, instead of focusing on the horror of that experience, he celebrates it as a gateway to sexual maturity. So when you're educating young children on what sexual maturity and those steps to get there look like, please don't include rape or sexual assault as one of those foundational steps. And don't make it look healthy. And maybe he argues it differently somewhere else, but he says he knew it was wrong, but only because he was having sex with a family member. I'm sorry. Our kids are impressionable. And there's a whole section where he discloses and gives graphic detail around those different sexual incidences that occurred to him. And while that might be horrific and that's his story, why for kids?
Yeah.
So it's award-winning, and guess what? It'll be in every single one of your libraries because it won that award, and because it will check off a box for your school or your library.
And I'm going to guess that every child these days that's calling themselves in that queer, because it talks about being queer on the back, that would call themselves, they're probably being given this book. They're probably, this'll...
And the actual author,
it would be...
He's a dynamic character. He's all over TV. He's all over media, and people
I've
would
seen
be
him.
very, very drawn to him.
Yeah.
You know, so he's someone with massive influence.
Yes.
And if they were to have that book, preferably not for children, if they were to have that book on the shelf
In the adult section.
in the adults,
for adults.
that would be one thing. But they should also have a story about where it doesn't turn out, which is the normal story, which it doesn't turn out. For instance,
The evil of it, and not describing and
with a pink
glorifying it, right?
Rose-colored.
So,
rose-colored glasses, exactly.
so here's what's happened, I think, is that, so in 2015, the WHO puts out this sexual memorandum about, it's the right of all people and children to have their sexuality explored, and so this begins to remove parents. Then we have this onslaught of the books. People don't even know it's there. Then, because a lot of people are questioning why there's a lot of things that are happening in schools now. The other day I was reading reading an article about 3 girls in one class coming out as wanting to transition. Well, where's all this information coming from? Well, it's on the internet, and it's in the books that are freely being read that parents would maybe have no idea has been put in.
Well, it's actually, it's a requirement.
It's a
under
requirement.
this document.
Right.
And they're calling it a human right. So yes, your children will be explicitly educated on everything.
And we haven't even gone to the school situation, right? We're still on a public library.
Right. And is it true, I think that you were saying through your research you discovered that if the libraries are required and have a mandate to remove it, they have a you're asking them to have a policy, then the schools must follow suit.
It would be, I think maybe if there would be a
bylaw.
A bylaw.
Because the
So is a bylaw
municipalities
Pass
are in
that.
charge of the
Okay,
safety
yes.
of the entire community.
So you need the city to then do a bylaw. So this is the fight.
Oh, the fight is big, but
They
the
just
fight is
put
worth
this in.
it.
It is worth it.
Well, parents weren't consulted. And if you think that they were consulted, you're wrong. Because
Right.
you can see it's been implemented from the WHO to the federal government, who then requested that somebody else create a document for them. And now our provinces are requesting that same organization to make the same document.
Right.
So it hasn't been organic.
Okay. You guys have now started a Substack, and we'll create
small.
But I think it's going to get bigger. So you should prepare for that. But you have a Substack, so you're writing about what you're going through and helping others.
much as we can. We would love to help others.
Yeah.
We're parents with our own kids.
You're really busy.
We're
I
very
know.
busy.
Yeah.
So we are doing what we're called to do. We're saying
You're not
yes
really
to our
asking for
calling.
Yeah.
one more thing on your plate as moms,
But I mean, videos of presentations have been made public. So and nothing's copyrighted, right? Every person who stands and speaks stands for themselves, and they stand as individuals. And part of that is obviously strategic. I mean, you can't cancel an individual, and as a taxpayer, you have the right to be able to speak and communicate around things that are very, very concerning to you. And so that allows people to do that. So with the information, hopefully, that we will make public in the future, people can take that and make that their own. But really, to start, you need the criminal code. But
Yeah. So first of all, get to the library, see what's there. I can guarantee you there's something there. I can guarantee you that.
100%.
In fact, these documents show that there's going to be something there.
yeah.
yeah.
Then make sure that you
So
have actually
I'll
read.
just show your
Yeah.
people this, because will it show up opposite?
They'll flip it though.
Yeah?
It's fine.
Okay, so there's that.
And I'll get some pictures too.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm gonna get pictures so that we can insert it of everything that you read. Is there anything that we've missed?
I'm just,
You've,
you know what,
We've had a lot of
I hope it
time
all-
talking and you.
makes sense.
There
I
was-
hope
Yeah.
it makes sense. I hope
This.
it can be brought together.
Okay, so you guys want to step by step. If you
Yes.
feel compelled to do this, number one, find the materials on the shelves, either your school or your library, or your online selections, right? Because those are paid for and curated. Number two, look at the criminal code sections 152 and 163. So 152 and 163, that's all you need to be able to use as a filter to view the information in front of you. Number three, you have to find your people. So how do you want to have a voice in this? Maybe you have someone who can write something for you. Maybe you have someone who's comfortable speaking in front of others. Maybe you have a prayer group. I mean,
Everybody has talents. You've got to
Yeah.
find your talented people. God gave us all talents. So
yeah.
Right.
And number four, the big thing and the fancy word is delegation. So delegation just means
you want to stand as a presentation in front of your board,
presenter.
or
It's a fancy
presenter.
word for presenter. Number four, you email either your municipal council or city council or town council if you want to present in front of town councils regarding the tax dollars, or you email, if you're at the stage where you're emailing your library board, you email the director or the board chair for your library board, and you request to be a delegation, and they will ask you what the topic is, and you can say whatever it is. For us, it was safety. And then they should not have a way of saying no to you. It is your right and your duty as a citizen to be able to do that. So once you're accepted as a delegation, you have to know what you're going to have to say. And just a rule of thumb across pretty much all of Canada, I would think, is you get about 10 minutes. So you have to think about, what do I want to show them? And what do I want to say? Because you can hand them documents, of course, as evidence. You can include the criminal code for them so that they can't walk away from it. I mean, if you create a booklet or something for them to hold on to, it's very hard not to forget
Yeah.
what they've seen. And then you wait for a decision. And if it doesn't work at the library level to create policy, or, then you
I
can
mean,
go to
maybe
your
you can
municipal
just take the
councils.
pictures
Yeah.
that the kids are seeing.
Yep.
And take a photo, print it off,
Yep.
and give each of them the photos so that they might experience
Yeah.
the disturbing moments
Yep.
that have come from the brief looking into this that I've done. And it's so very inappropriate.
Disturbing.
Yes.
Well, and-
It's evil.
And then the bigger thing when you step back is, how do you educate your community?
Right.
You can talk to your pastor one-on-one and let him know what environment your youth are being situated in.
Yeah.
That's the only way to actually speak effectively to your kids. You have to know what they're going through, and you can talk to your community. If you have an opportunity to end up in any kind of media situation, just say the criminal code. Anything else that you say,
They'll twist.
they will twist and delete or whatever. I mean, locally, maybe not, right? You might have that relationship with your local paper, but if you keep coming back to the criminal code, eventually the truth surfaces. They can't hide it forever,
Yeah,
and then we see what happens.
I think that's great.
I guess my big thing is you guys, the elected officials are just people like you. Everybody has has a purpose here. Everybody, and it's not as scary as what you think it is. They are elected officials. It is really a conversation in front of people who don't have more power than you do. They were put into a position of authority. They were put into a position of with jurisdiction, and they have to be given tools through you. And so I'm calling everybody to just answer yes to whatever you're being called to do.
Yeah.
You can stand
Be that
up,
voice.
be that voice, be that voice for our future. It's not as hard as get past the fear.
Imagine, a million mothers.
If they all just stood
My friend
up.
Dominique has this group, the mothers are coming. So the mothers
So
are the
beautiful.
mama bears,
It is,
that are
it is.
really standing in the place to protect the children. And I think what you've said is just so important.
Yeah. We can do it. And it's really not that hard. These are just people who are elected officials who actually are just like you and I, who stood up to be elected onto these positions. And they wanted to do the right thing. So
Yeah.
help them, help you do the right thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they just need the information. They need to, first of all, most of them aren't even aware.
Yeah.
They're starting to be aware because this is such a hot topic because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But they're starting to be aware. But they need to know that parents, people have a problem with what's going on.
Yes.
And you need to make sure that they have a problem. We need to not sit down anymore. We need to get up and do something. And
Right.
if that just means stand, that's how we got here, is that we just let things happen. And now we can't just do that anymore.
Right.
And there's no fear involved. We have that in our
No
hearts.
fear. And so, yeah, we miss Jen. She might get back before we end. The one thing that I wanted to add was I remembered this verse in Song of Solomon, and it says, "Do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases." And there's 3 times that in Song of Solomon 2 verse 7, 3 verse 5, and 8 verse 4. The NIV's wording is also similar. It says, "Do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires." With the threefold repetition, this command can be considered a refrain and becomes a theme running throughout the song. So Jen, we understand she's here now. So I just want to end with this warning from the Word of God that really the speaker in Song of Solomon is addressing the daughters of Jerusalem, young unmarried women in Israel's capital city, and giving them wise advice. Do not awaken love until it pleases. It's a solemn charge given by one who has found true love and is experiencing the joys of that true love. Do not attempt to arouse or awaken love. Don't stir it up. Love should be allowed to rest until it awakens on its own accord. And that is, I believe, the instruction of God, that there comes a time when you begin to pay attention to all of these things about the opposite sex and the fun of it all, and hoping that you find that person that God has for you. But this clearly is awakening and arousing things in children, and that is not okay.
It's not okay.
So I thank you for your fight. And Jen, you can just say goodbye from over there if you want. Yeah.
Thank you for the conversation.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. She's doing what every mom does, and she's snuggling with her.
Her little one.
Yeah. So
And that's what we're trying to help, is our little ones.
I'm alarmed by it all, and I'm really grateful for you. And I'm really grateful for the fight you're in. And I'd love to do a follow-up on this in a season of time to determine what worked and what you were able to do through using the Criminal Code of Canada to protect our families and
Yes,
children.
absolutely. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me get in your bubble. She was like,
Bubble burst.
Yeah, she wasn't happy about the camera, and Jen was like, I don't do this, and so it's all good. Thank you so much, everyone. God bless.
Growth.
Take care.
Thank you.
It's growth. Isn't that awesome? I love those ladies. Oh my gosh, they were so fantastic. So Christine and Jen, we just want to say thank you to you for standing up for the kids and also for teaching other women. So what I think now is that the all of us now can figure out if the books are in our libraries across Canada, and you can get a hold of me and I will pass your information on to Dominique. Dominique has an organization called The Mothers Are Coming, and we can begin to do due diligence to make sure that none of this stuff is in our schools, that we are watching our families and caring for our loved ones. I'm very, very grateful for that. Now, I don't know, JT, if I have a, no, it's okay. I won't do another share. I just appreciate these women. So women in so southern Manitoba, this is one of the most beautiful places on God's green earth. It is a place where you can hear Christian music when you go into a little coffee shop, and they're standing up for what's right. And if these books can get into the libraries in a place like southern Manitoba, I fear for the rest of the country. So do what you can do and get. I feel like this jacket is just like so huge. Like, do I look kind of mammoth on the video right now? Okay, it's just a woman thing. I'm going to close out. All of you, we're going to have Steve Merrill on about silver later this week, silver and gold. And we understand that we might have a crisis we're having a crisis financially in Canada. We absolutely recommend that you don't keep cash in the bank where they can freeze it or diminish it, or one day you wake up and your cash is worth a third of what you thought it was. We don't think that you need to do that. So be vigilant, invest in something that might be really a lot more beneficial, and that would be silver and gold. For those of you who support this work, I just want to say thank you. You don't see this. You're not going to see these two ladies on CBC tonight or CTV or Global. Do you know why? Because they are not, because they are saying something that is not politically correct, and they are fighting an agenda that is very big, and they're very courageous. And in order to find people like this, we have to do a little digging. And when we get stories like this, we want to alert Canada. Go to your libraries, figure out what's going on. You know what they remind me of? They remind me of the Proverbs 31 woman. So as I close today, I just want to say, this is what it says about women who stand up for their families and their kids, and they fight the good fight. It says, listen, my son, listen, son of my womb. Listen, my son, the answer to my prayers. Do not spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings. It is not for kings, Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and deprive all the oppressed of their rights. In verse 10 it says, a wife of noble character, though, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. You know what I like about these women? They also bake homemade bread. I really want to learn how to do that so I can be a more virtuous woman. My husband would be very excited about that. She brings him good and not harm all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. I really like that part too about the female servants. Like, that would be cool if we had some, but I don't have any. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable. She's a businesswoman. Her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor, and she extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, She has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. And you definitely need to have that good clothing in Manitoba. It's pretty cold. It was cold the other day. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with sashes. You know what I find is that the women that the word is promoting are women who are business people, who know how to make stuff, sell it, bring in an income for their families. I like it. I think that it talks about real estate too in here. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. I would say that the mothers of Canada are these kind of women. They watch over the affairs of their household. They're not sitting around doing nothing. They're actually finding out what's out there. They're homeschoolers. They're moms with kids in school, but they're diligent to find out what's in school libraries as well. And they're not going to take it sitting down. And they won't be silent. And they won't be quiet in the face of evil. And they will not allow their children to be harmed. They will not be quiet. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord, she is to be praised. Awesome. See you again tomorrow. God bless. It's not easy to deliver the truth of what our sick world is doing, but for some of us, we feel that we have no choice. Because if we are silent about these abominable things, then we are letting evil go unchecked, and we cannot do that. For those of you wonderful people who are writing me and are sharing your encouragement, I am deeply grateful. Thank you for all the letters that you've been sending. Thank you for the donations and the support. I found out that in order to speak the truth, you have to become very, very strong. If you would go to my website at www.laura-lynn.tv, you'll find all of the ways that you can contact me. Remember, my friends, all is well. All is well. Thanks for joining me.